So over the past week, we've had the release of the amazing, the spectacular, and just all-round awesome game, which is of course Spider-Man on the PS4, carrying on the great tradition of the superhero open-world games from the Batman Arkham series. Spider-Man on the PS4 has people extremely hyped and just happy in general to be swinging around New York City and just, well, being Spider-Man. With the inevitable grand success of this game, you would have to think this will open the door for many other superhero titles to come out that aren't connected to a movie or anything like that to get into development. Whether that is in the next couple of years or even 5 or 6 years down the road. But instead of looking into the future as to what could be happening, even though Rocksteady should really get working on that Superman game, we will be tapping into the Speed Force and travelling back in time a bit as we go over a cancelled Flash open world video game from around a decade ago. So back in 2008, prior to the Batman Arkham series of video games, Bottle Rocket Entertainment, alongside Brash Entertainment and Warner Brothers, set out to develop an open-world Flash video game with Wally West being the main focus of the game, with the game taking place within the first 12 months of the character getting his powers, and it was set for a, mid-2009 release. The cities of Keystone and Central City were both going to be accessible in this game, with us, the gamers, given the ability to travel between each of them. Each city would both have standard main missions, which would of course encompass the main story of the game, but would also have various side missions. These missions allowed the player to mold the world that we were playing in. So for example, if you were playing the game and you were aiming to complete as many missions as possible, you would see that both the cities of Keystone and Central were thankful for the presence of you as the Flash. But if you did just the minimal amount of work in the game, just wanted to rush through it and just progress through the game, so basically just did the main story, the cities wouldn't be the biggest fan of you because you weren't doing those side missions, which most of the time would be stopping like petty crimes and stuff like that. A lot of the people there, especially those affected by crime, would be, not the biggest fans of you. So seeing that you're the Flash, you should be able to prevent, robberies and all those little petty crimes pretty easily, like it shouldn't take too much of your time. If you are a fan of The Flash or even just DC Comics in general, you should know that The Flash has one of the best rogues galleries in comics. Only behind, funnily enough, Batman and Superman, who as I said before, are the two superheroes who have successful video games attached to their names. So of course, you would expect a decent amount of that rogues gallery to show up in the game, and from what we know, villains including Weather Wizard, Mirror Master, and Captain Cold will have all played a big part in the game, going up against the Flash at various stages throughout the game's story as well as side missions. Apparently, even at one point in the story, players would have encountered the first version of the Flash, or the Golden Age Flash, of Jay Garrick in a mission where Jay Garrick is actually kidnapped by some villains to experiment on his blood. In regards to the combat system that would be used for the game seemed to use like a typical beat 'em up style of combat, but also allowed the use of, more creative options for fighting. But in regards to regular use, it did seem that when you were in a fighting scenario with multiple enemies, that a few were targeted and assigned as a certain button on your controller, such as the X, B, and Y buttons on the Xbox 360 controller. But of course, seeing that you are the Flash in this game, you would most likely want to use some of those more creative options or special moves, and who knows what they could have, been once the game was done. We'll never know, I guess. One fun fact about the game is that seeing that this is a game with a storyline, that requires dialogue and voice acting. And the ideal choice for the role back in 2008, remember that, back in 2008, was actually Ryan Reynolds, who of course is now tearing it up on screen as Deadpool. But back then, he was their top choice, which is actually pretty funny, as back then, around this time as well, Ryan Reynolds was actually in talks to star in a Flash movie as the Wally West version of the character, which is who would have been, in this game, as I said before.
Coincidence? I think not!
But jumping into some screenshots of gameplay and concept art, you can see that the game was a decent amount into development with a lot of, stuff looking pretty damn cool. With a list of heroes to include that of the Flash, obviously, then Jay Garrick, Bart Allen as both Kid Flash and Impulse, and even Jesse Quick. And then we move on to the villainous side of things. This is where you really get to dive into the potential of the game, as Captain Cold and Gorilla Grodd were apparently meant to be sort of main focuses, or more main focuses than the others if you were going to pick and choose out of the roster of villains that were included. But apart from Captain Cold and Gorilla Grodd, we also had Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, Trickster, Captain Boomerang, Tar Pit, Abracadabra, Heatwave. You had some like generic robot sort of villains, which I'm guessing would have been like connected to side missions or something like that within the game. You always get those in these open world games. You just get like this random enemy. There's like heaps of them, and they're just usually connected to side missions, or they're just like faceless goons for you to take down in big fighting scenarios. So there's like these like robot sort of things. And of course, there was Reverse Flash. However, I don't think it was ever stated whether it was Earbud Thorn or Hunter Zolomon. Seeing that it is Wally West that was the focus of this game, you would just think it would be Hunter Zolomon or Zoom who would have been that Reverse Flash, but yeah, as I said, it was never specified, I'm pretty sure. But apart from those members of the Flash's Rogues Gallery, along with some concept art for Impulse, or Bart Allen, you do actually see some concept art for Inertia as well. So due to this, who knows what other villains that could have been brought in from the comics that aren't necessarily attached to that Rogues Gallery for the Flash to take on. Characters like Savitar, Black Flash, amongst other villains, even though is Black Flash really a villain? Anyway. And even other heroic speedsters such as like Max Mercury could have made cameos or even longer appearances to assist the story. You never know, maybe Barry Allen comes back for the dead randomly for one little part in this video game story. But when it comes down to it, why was the game cancelled? Why in 2009 did this Flash game never get released? Well, it's actually pretty simple. The publisher collapsed. The publisher, who was Brush Entertainment, was a publisher who specialized in like licensed games. So, tie-in games, mainly for movies or TV shows. The first 3 games that they published, which were Alvin and the Chipmunks, Jumper, Griffin's Story, I don't know why they'd make a game connected to the Jumper movie anyway, and Space Chimps, were all movie tie-in properties, and all of them lost money, like they weren't profitable. So due to multiple fails in a row, Brush was running out of money and was even trying to offload some of its current properties, which they'd paid for, and works that were in development back to their original holders. So really, when it comes down to it, the development of this Flash game was just stuck in the middle of a big mess. If it had started production even just a few months earlier, who knows, it might have been released, but it was just caught up in the fall of Brush Entertainment. Some of the games that Brush was set to publish were offloaded to other publishers that were willing to take them on, but the Flash game, as well as an apparent Superman game that was in early development, were not handed off to other companies unfortunately, and were just, left to be forgotten. Hopefully the success of the Batman Arkham series and the destined grand success of the Spider-Man game on PS4 will open the door to other comic book characters to have their own individual disconnected stories represented in games in the near future, because we can't have the only Flash game to be this thing back from the early 1990s. This cannot stand. And with today's graphics and technology, we should be able to see something great from the fastest man alive in that form of media. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Be greatly appreciated. Let me know in the comments section down below. Did you know about this Flash game? Is this the first time you're hearing about this cancelled Flash game from around 2008? Would you have liked to have played this game? The graphics might not look that good, but you gotta remember this was a decade ago on the Xbox 360, and really basically sort of earlier into the Xbox 360's lifespan, so I think it looks good for back then. But yeah, leave your opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.